From the burning pits of Mordor to the darkest shadows of Mirkwood, evil takes many forms in Middle-earth. Some villains sought power above all else. Others were driven by greed, cruelty, or even twisted obsession. And while heroes like Frodo, Aragorn, and Gandalf are remembered for their courage, the legends of Tolkien's world would not be complete without the monsters, tyrants, and traitors that nearly drowned it in darkness. Today, we're diving into the shadows to rank the 15 most evil villains, from the Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit movies. From cunning deceivers to unstoppable forces of destruction, we'll uncover who truly deserves the title of Middle-earth's darkest figure. Some of these villains you'll know well, others you might have forgotten, but all of them left their mark on the history of Arda. Welcome back. Grab your lembas bread, keep your sword close, and let's step into the darkness to meet the most wicked foes ever to stalk the lands of Tolkien's legendarium. Starting off with the first villain on our list.
None but the King of Gondor may command me.
15. The King of the Dead. Long before Aragorn called upon him in the War of the Ring, he and his people swore an oath to Isildur during the Second Age. But when the time came to honor that oath, they betrayed their word, choosing cowardice over courage. For that treachery, Isildur cursed them, binding their souls to the shadow until their debt was repaid. Though Aragorn would eventually turn them to his cause, the King of the Dead began as a villain, a symbol of broken oaths, betrayal, and the chilling weight of undeath. His very existence is proof that in Middle-earth, even kings are not safe from corruption and doom.
Looks like meat back on the menu, boys!
14. Uglúk and Grishnákh. Uglúk, the brutal Uruk-hai captain of Isengard, embodies the ruthless efficiency of Saruman's creations. He leads the warband that captures Merry and Pippin.
Give him some medicine, boys!
And unlike many of his kind, he enforces a twisted sense of order. Uglúk drives his soldiers mercilessly, showing loyalty to his master, but no compassion for his troops or prisoners. His violence is direct, brutal, and unrelenting. A commander who views killing not as savagery, but as duty. Grishnákh, on the other hand, comes from Mordor and represents the sly, treacherous side of orcish nature. He covets the ring carried by the hobbits and seeks to betray his allies to claim it for himself. Unlike Uglúk, he rules through fear and suspicion, manipulating rather than commanding. His cruelty is colder, more calculating, and deeply rooted in his lust for power. Together, they reflect the infighting and corruption that plague Sauron's forces. Two villains whose malice and ambition prove that even within the armies of darkness, evil often turns upon itself.
Who would be so bold as to come armed into my kingdom?
13. The Great Goblin. Deep in the misty mountains, the company of Thorin Oakenshield encounters a grotesque ruler, the Great Goblin. Unlike the disciplined might of orcs and Uruk-hai, this creature rules through excess, arrogance, and cruelty. His cavernous halls are littered with the spoils of raiding, and his people obey out of fear and gluttony rather than loyalty. The Great Goblin is cowardly yet boastful, mocking his prisoners while relying on his underlings to do the fighting. His greed blinds him to danger, and it is this arrogance that leads to his swift death at the hands of Gandalf. But his villainy lies not in strength or cunning, but in the way he embodies corruption and decay, a petty tyrant who delights in cruelty and the suffering of others. He may not rival Middle-earth's great powers, but his presence shows that evil thrives even in the darkest corners of the wilds.
That'll do it.
The age of men is over. The time of the orc has come.
12. Gothmog. From the ruins of Osgiliath to the walls of Minas Tirith, one of the most grotesque commanders in Sauron's army makes his presence known. Gothmog, the lieutenant of Morgul. With a twisted face and a voice dripping with malice, he serves as the Witch-king's second-in-command during the siege of Gondor. Gothmog relishes the suffering of men, orchestrating the assault on Minas Tirith with ruthless precision. He orders the release of the great battering ram, Grond, the unleashing of trolls, and the relentless assault upon the city's gates. He is not a warrior who leads from the front, but a parasite who feeds on the blood of others, spreading fear through intimidation and his grotesque presence. Though not the most powerful of Sauron's servants, Gothmog's sadism and cruelty earn him a place among Middle-earth's most vile villains.
Whom do you serve?
Saruman.
11. Lurtz. Few villains from Peter Jackson's trilogy are as instantly memorable as Lurtz, the first of Saruman's Uruk-hai. Unlike the mindless goblins of Mordor, Lurtz is bred for one purpose alone: to hunt, kill, and destroy with terrifying efficiency. Towering, muscular, and fearless in daylight, he represents Saruman's attempt to perfect the orc, a creature stronger, faster, and utterly loyal to its master. Lurtz commands the Uruk-hai at Amon Hen, where he relentlessly hunts the Fellowship. His brutality is unmatched. He slays Boromir with a hail of arrows in one of the most iconic and heartbreaking moments of the films.
I would have followed you, my brother.
Even when pierced by Aragorn's blade, Lurtz spits defiance, embodying the savage willpower of Saruman's creations. 10. The Balrog of Moria. Deep in the roots of the Misty Mountains lies a terror older than the kingdoms of men, dwarves, or even elves. The Balrog of Moria, known as Durin's Bane, is no mere beast. It is a fallen Maya, corrupted by Morgoth in the First Age, a living shadow of fire and darkness. When the dwarves of Khazad-dûm dug too greedily and too deep, they awakened this demon, and their proud kingdom was brought to ruin. Unlike villains who plot and scheme, the Balrog is pure destructive force. Wreathed in flame, wielding a fiery whip and sword, it is an elemental embodiment of terror. Its battle with Gandalf on the bridge of Khazad-dûm is one of the most iconic moments in all of Middle-earth. Where even a wizard of immense power could only just withstand it. Durin's Bane is not cunning. It is annihilation given form.
Thieves. They're thieves.
9. Gollum. Among all the villains of Middle-earth, few are as tragic and unsettling as Gollum. Once a hobbit-like creature named Smeagol, he was consumed by the One Ring, twisted over centuries into a pitiful yet dangerous shadow of his former self. His body is frail, his voice fractured, but his malice runs deep, driven by an obsession with his precious that eclipses all other desires. Gollum is not a commander of armies or a wielder of great power, but his treachery is no less destructive. He betrays Frodo and Sam to Shelob, lures them into deadly traps, and manipulates them with lies. Yet behind every act of cruelty lies a fractured mind, torn between his lingering Smeagol side and the darker, hungering Gollum persona. This duality makes him both pitiable and terrifying. A reminder that the corruption of the ring can twist even the smallest heart into a vessel of evil. 8. Azog and Bolg. From the dark pits of Gundabad to the bloody fields of battle, Azog the Defiler and his son Bolg stand as the embodiment of orcish malice across both the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogies. Azog, scarred and monstrous, is introduced as Thorin Oakenshield's nemesis, a towering white orc whose cruelty knows no bounds. He slaughters without mercy, hunts the company across Middle-earth, and wages war with a cunning brutality that elevates him above common orcs. Bolg, his heir, continues that legacy, serving as a commander at the Battle of the Five Armies. Where Azog represents vengeance and personal hatred, Bolg thrives in sheer bloodlust, dueling Legolas and leading waves of orcs with relentless ferocity. Together, they embody the orcish drive for domination and slaughter. Father and son are not masterminds like Sauron or Saruman, but their savagery ensures their place among Middle-earth's most detested villains.
My master, Sauron the Great, bids thee welcome.
7. the Mouth of Sauron. Among the many servants of the Dark Lord, none are as unsettling as the Mouth of Sauron. Once a man of Númenórean descent, he gave himself wholly to Sauron's will, rising to become his messenger, lieutenant, and voice. Twisted by long service, his face is hidden by a grotesque helm, his mouth stretched wide into a leering sneer, the only part of him that still matters, for he speaks with Sauron's authority. When he rides before the Black Gate, he does not come as a warrior, but as a corrupter. With venomous words, he seeks to shatter the resolve of Aragorn and his companions, presenting Frodo's belongings as proof of their friend's capture. His cruelty lies not in strength of arms, but in manipulation and despair. The Mouth of Sauron is the embodiment of servitude to darkness, a man who traded his very identity for his master's malice. Six, Shelob. In the dark, winding tunnels of Cirith Ungol lurks one of the oldest and most nightmarish creatures in Middle-earth, Shelob, the Great Spider. Born in the First Age as the daughter of Ungoliant, she is not merely a beast, but an ancient, malevolent, hunger-given form. For centuries, she has haunted the passes near Mordor, feeding on all who wander into her lair. Unlike Sauron or Saruman, Shelob does not plot or scheme. Her evil is primal. She exists only to consume, to paralyze her prey with venom, and to feast in the endless dark. Frodo and Sam nearly meet their end in her webs, as she strikes with terrifying swiftness and near invulnerability. Even Sauron tolerates her presence, seeing her as another weapon against intruders. Shelob is pure, instinctive malice, a predator from the dawn of the world, who makes fear itself her ally. 5. The Nazgúl. Few figures in Middle-earth inspire more dread than the Ringwraiths, the Nazgúl. Once mighty kings of men, they were ensnared by the 9 rings of power, their wills bound forever to the one. Stripped of their humanity, they became shadows of terror, invisible to mortal eyes, yet felt in every chilling breath and piercing shriek. The Nazgúl are relentless hunters, driven by Sauron's command. From the Black Riders who stalk Frodo in the Shire, to the fell beasts they ride across the skies, their presence is a constant reminder of the ring's corruptive power. Their greatest weapon is not merely the sword, but fear itself, which saps the courage of even the bravest hearts. They are the very embodiment of enslavement to evil, kings who traded their souls for power, only to become eternal servants of darkness.
This is my power.
4. The Witch-king of Angmar. At the head of the Nazgúl rides their lord, Sauron's most feared lieutenant and the embodiment of terror itself. Once a mortal king, his true name is long forgotten, erased by centuries of corruption. As the Witch-king, he wields sorcery and malice, leading armies of darkness with ruthless precision. His fall of Arnor and long reign in Angmar left scars upon the northern kingdoms that endured for generations. On the battlefield, his presence is overwhelming. With a piercing screech and blade imbued with dark magic, he strikes fear even into the bravest warriors. Yet his doom is prophesied. No living man can slay him. At the Battle of Pelennor Fields, he fulfills his legend, slaying King Theoden before being brought down by Éowyn and Merry in one of the most iconic moments in the saga. The Witch-king is dread incarnate, a crown of malice and shadow.
Break him.
World is changing. Who now has the strength to stand against the armies of Isengard and Mordor?
3. Saruman the White. Once the head of the White Council and the wisest of the Istari, Saruman the White stood as a guardian of Middle-earth. Yet his thirst for knowledge and power slowly corrupted him. Obsessed with the One Ring and envious of Sauron's strength, he betrayed his purpose and allied himself with the very darkness he was sent to oppose. Saruman's villainy lies not just in his sorcery, but in his cunning. He breeds the Uruk-hai in the pits of Isengard, unleashes them against Rohan, and seeks to bend kings and peoples to his will through manipulation. His voice, smooth and commanding, is his greatest weapon, able to sway even the strongest minds. In the end, Saruman becomes a cautionary tale, not destroyed by Sauron, but undone by his own pride and lust for power, a fallen wizard who chose domination over wisdom.
I
2. Smaug. Among the most fearsome creatures to ever walk Middle-earth is Smaug the Golden, the last great fire drake of the Third Age. His power is not only in his immense size or his devastating fire, but in his cunning intellect. Unlike mindless beasts, Smaug delights in cruelty. His words drip with arrogance, his laughter with scorn. He does not simply kill, he dominates, instills fear, and toys with his prey. His sack of Erebor and Dale left entire kingdoms in ruin, their people scattered, their treasures buried beneath his vast hoard. For generations, his shadow over the lonely mountain was a reminder of both greed and terror. When Bilbo Baggins dares enter his lair, we see Smaug's true nature, sharp-witted, suspicious, and merciless. Even in death, he leaves destruction behind, raining fire upon Lake Town. Smaug is evil wrapped in pride, the perfect marriage of power, greed, and devastation.
One ring to rule them all.
1. Sauron, the Dark Lord. At the pinnacle of Middle-earth's villains stands one name above all others, Sauron, the Dark Lord. A fallen Maia, once a servant of Morgoth, he mastered the art of domination and deception. Through his craft, he forged the One Ring, pouring into it a vast portion of his power, a single object that bound the wills of kings, enslaved the Nine, and threatened to bend all of Arda to his dominion. Sauron is more than a tyrant. He is the shadow that stretches across ages, the eye that never sleeps, the will that drives entire nations to ruin. Even when his physical form is destroyed, his presence endures, a dark whisper in the hearts of men, a fire that fuels greed, envy, and betrayal. His armies march at his command, his sorcery corrupts the land, and his schemes ensnare even the wise. Sauron is the embodiment of evil in Middle-earth, not just a villain, but the very darkness against which every hero must stand. Without him, there is no story, only silence beneath his eternal shadow. From cursed kings and corrupted wizards to monstrous beasts and twisted servants, the villains of Middle-earth are as unforgettable as its heroes. Each one, from the treachery of Gollum to the terror of the Witch-king, from the flames of Smaug to the malice of Saruman, leaves a scar upon the world. But which of these villains do you think was the darkest of them all? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey through the evil of Middle-earth, make sure to like, subscribe, and join me for more stories from Tolkien's world. Thanks for watching, and as always, see you on the next one.